Good morning, Vine family. Let me just begin by telling you how much I miss you and miss the ability to gather together with you. We long for a time when we're able to join back up on a Sunday morning, or at a small group, or even a smaller group than that. Just to gather, to see you, to see how you're doing. And I think we have some ways we can make that work a little bit later on in this video, so stick around and I'll try to share that with you. I wanted to begin by telling you that this is, like we said last week, unprecedented. And again, there's so much uncertainty here as we kind of navigate our way through the wilderness that we find ourselves in. Even yesterday, things were changing by the minute. We saw you may have seen the governor of our state issue lengthening the time before the kids will be able to go back to school, some other businesses closing, but stopping short of placing us in our homes and telling us to stay there without leaving for the next little while. That may be coming, we don't know. Last night we watched another news conference, a national news conference with our president, and he talked about measuring where things were in a week and maybe lifting some of the sanctions, or lifting some of the restrictions that we have right now. Quite honestly, if you're like me, you may have watched the news yesterday and been even more confused. What's going on here? We said last week, if you were able to watch us on our Sunday broadcast and our live stream, or our stream Sunday, we said last week as we studied the Israelites in Exodus, that what we know is there's so much uncertainty, there's so many things that we don't have answers for when we're in the wilderness, but we do have the answer that we most need, and that answer and that reminder that we saw in Exodus as we worked through that on Sunday was this: that the Lord is with us in the wilderness. And so I want to just remind you of that this morning. No matter where you're at this morning, no matter if your life's been turned upside down, or you're maybe one of the few who just seem to be trucking along without any issues and nothing's really interrupted you, wherever you're at this morning, I want to remind you that if this thing gets bad, or if it gets worse, or if it stays the same, or if it turns around tomorrow, that the Lord is with us. And so we celebrate that. We're thankful for that we can count on our God to be with us. And so that changes how we head into this, right? That changes how we handle something like this. I was reminded this week of John 15, though, and I'll tell you why. We keep going back to abiding. I do not believe it was an accident that the Lord had us the first part of the year going over these gospel rhythms that allow us to abide in Him. And many of those, or some of those, the beginning of those, were solely gospel rhythms that we tend to do in smaller groups or by ourselves. I think the Lord was preparing us. We needed to know how to take a Sabbath. You're getting the opportunity now to Sabbath, I feel certain. We needed silence and solitude, and certainly we're having an opportunity for silence and solitude. That is, unless you have kids running around, and then you are longing for an opportunity just for a little bit of silence and solitude. Take that. Get away for 5 minutes here and there. Close the door. Spend time with the Lord, just you and Him. We talked about prayer, and certainly if there's anything that we should be doing right now, it's praying. We talked about fasting. We talked about study. Spend time in the Word of the Lord. We certainly can't gather right now in the conventional sense, but there are other ways that we can gather. FaceTime someone, call someone, stay connected to other people, especially people in our church family. Encourage them. We need that encouragement right now. Some of the best things that's happened to me in the last week were texts that I got from some of you, or phone calls that I got from some of you, just to encourage me during this time. And man, I hope that I can be an encouragement to you as well, and that others in our group can be an encouragement to you as well. So let's remember those gospel rhythms. But one thing that stuck out again and again in John 15 is when Jesus says in John 15 this: "As the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Remain in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I've kept my Father's commandments and remain in His love." And He says this is my command: love one another as I have loved you. And he says, that we're going to be known by our love for each other. Now that's difficult to pull off in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a crisis like we find ourselves. I read excerpts from an article from the New Yorker a few weeks ago. It talked about the difference in how people act and react during a pandemic and the different way that they react and act in a natural disaster such as a hurricane or a tornado or a terrorist attack such as 9/11. We all know, we've seen what happens during a hurricane around here. After a hurricane, people band together. They come together, they go out, they work on houses, but afterwards, we almost always are more unified. We almost always have more in common. We're built up, and our groups seem to be more solid. And we like to reminisce about that. We like to talk about, hey, remember when the hurricane hit a few years ago? Not the hurricane, but remember the after effects of the hurricane when we went out and worked on this home and we were able to share the gospel. And so when we see natural disasters, hurricane, tornadoes, even 9/11, most of you, if you were alive during 9/11 or after 9/11, you remember the community, the country came together and communities of faith grew because people needed to be reminded how we're better together. But that article referenced the fact that in a pandemic, it often works the opposite way. That during a pandemic, what we find is that people, because of the necessity to be alone, to practice solitude, to be isolated, that we don't always get that effect. In fact, we get the opposite effect. What happens is a lot of times during pandemics, people become their worst. That's why we're hoarding toilet paper, right? That's why when we go to the grocery store, we have to be reminded to only get 1 or 2 loaves of bread because we need to leave some there for our neighbor. And so what we find is that during a pandemic, we act not unified, but we act alone because that's what it teaches us we have to do. And then what happens is the after effect of that is we don't look back after a pandemic and say, wow, look at how we acted. In fact, sometimes in history, in this article kind of relayed history that it shows that oftentimes people are embarrassed of how they acted. We can't be that. We must be different. We're the church. We're the called people of God to share his love around the world. And what we must do is we can't act like what typically we would act like during a pandemic. It cannot just be about us. We have to find ways to love our neighbor. And that means we get creative because let's be honest, it's not easy right now. So I'm going to ask you to send me some example, maybe some ideas you have of how we can better love our neighbor in a pandemic. I've been talking to Matt Davis, and you remember Matt shared with us a few months ago his testimony, a bit of his testimony, and his passion for missions, and he is equally frustrated because it's so difficult to figure out how to serve people right now. But maybe you have some ideas, and Matt and I would love to hear some of those ideas, and we'd love to pass those along to you and try to organize some of that. And yes, it will be unconventional, but that's okay. We can make that work. So send us those ideas. So again, the main point of this is me just tell you how much I miss you and how much my family misses you and tell you how much we long to be back together with you and to remind us all that we are to love one another during this time. And let's put aside partisan politics and let's put aside just this pull of individualism, which a pandemic seems to push us towards, and let us be known for, as Jesus says, our love for one another. Let us be known for the fact that we are in the middle of this crisis trying to figure out and actually applying this idea that we love one another. And so would you love your neighbor with me in whatever way we can figure out how to make that happen? And would you send those ideas to me? Now, so thanks for that. I want to turn the table just a bit and just ask you to do 2 things for me. So we need 2 things because we want to unify our group. We want to make sure that we're not missing you. And so if you go to our website, I'll post the address below this post, but if you go to our website, vinefellowship.com, and you scroll through the coronavirus update, you'll see at the bottom of that, there's a spot for you to enter in some information for us. It's just contact information for people in your household. It's very important. We want to know who's in your household because we want to be able to reach out to you and check on those people who are in your household. And so I'm going to ask you to go to that. Some of you already have, and I really appreciate that. But those of you who have not had time, try to make time today. Go to our website, scroll down to the bottom of that very front page, that home page, and you'll see a spot. You can just click on it. It says submit. You'll go to a form, fill it out very quickly. Give us that information. That will help myself, the other elders, in remaining in contact, checking on you, trying to figure out how we can serve you during this time, because we're placing a priority on, quite honestly, keeping our group together. We put fellowship in our name because we believe in the value of gathering, of the gathering together of the saints. And we're unable to do that now, so we want to keep that fellowship going any way we can. So please fill that out. And then part two, and this is a little bit tricky, I'm going to need your help on this, but we would love for you and your family to take out your phone and to video your family together tonight, tomorrow, sometime in the next day or so. We're going to put a limit that I need all these by Thursday, so that gives us 2 days. But if you could videotape yourself, just a quick little update message, 10 to 20 seconds. Hey, this is my family. Hey, we're the Barefoots or the Barefeets. I'm never quite sure how to say that, but we're the Barefeets, and we're here, and we just want to tell you how much we miss and love you and long to be together. And maybe just share a little bit, a very brief, encouraging comment there, and then send that to me at my email address, which I will also link to this, pastormatt@vinefellowship.com. We're going to put those together, and we're going to push that out on our website, send that out, because we know some of you want to be updated on how other people are doing. We all want to know how our fellow brothers and sisters are navigating through this crisis, and we want to be encouraging to each other. And so it tells us, the Bible tells us to build each other up, and so we want to take this time to do just that. So would you just take out your phone sometime today, or your iPad, videotape you and your family, just a quick little message, give us an update on how you're doing, and then send that to my email address, or you can text it to me as well, but probably the email works better. But send that to my email address, and we're going to compile those. And again, we ask that everybody takes part, because we're going to put this out there, and I think it's going to be really good to see where everybody's at and the message that we can encourage each other with. And so we're excited for that. Look, again, we don't know what tomorrow holds. Right now, we're holding out hope that on Easter we can have some form of gathering, but the likelihood of that is probably not very good. We're going to keep praying for that. So here's what I want to ask you to do as I close up very quickly here is, would you pray? Would you pray that the Lord would just intervene here and wipe this virus out? He could send the medical professionals who are working tirelessly to try to save people and to try to find a cure to this, or a treatment for this pandemic. Would you pray the Lord would intervene and just send them that, because we believe He can supernaturally do that, and so would you call upon Him to do that? Would you pray for our leaders? There seems to be some disconnect every now and then when you watch television, if you're like me, and some confusion over what direction we're going in. Would you just pray for clarity for them, and that they would put aside politics and just stand up for the people of our great country and do what's best for them, so that we're not putting a group in more risk or doing anything like that, but that we are trying to take care of everyone, and that we love our neighbor even through that. And so would you pray for just wisdom for our elected officials and people in charge? Would you pray for other pastors in the area? I've been so encouraged by seeing so many churches place their worship services online, their youth events, or their youth services online, their kids programming online, so that people can have that. This is changing the way that we do church, and it's a reminder that we don't just do church and we don't just go to church, but we are the church. And I'm so encouraged by that. Would you pray for those pastors and those workers in the ministry who are doing everything they can to get this information and to try to navigate again, to try to steer a ship through what is a difficult time? I'm encouraged by what I see. And pastors, if you happen to be watching this from other churches, let me thank you, because wow, you're doing a wonderful job, and again, I'm so encouraged by what you're doing out there. We have a long way to go. It's very likely, but we believe we're better together. We say that all the time at the Vine, that we are better together, and together looks different now. But make no mistake about it, we're still together. So thank you. Please send me or answer that questionnaire, or submit that form, and then send me that video. We would love to have that. We love you. We're lifting you up in prayer. And if there's anything that any of you need, please do not hesitate to call me, or to text me, or to send me an email. Again, we love you, and we long to gather together again with you soon to worship our God.